What's going on, guys? Thanks for joining me for another episode, and in this episode I get to show you guys how the motorcycle did with the stock exhaust, with the Spark exhaust, with the LeoVince, as well as the SE project. The first exhaust that we're going to be putting on the dyno is obviously the stock exhaust.
So on our best run, we made 112 horsepower.
That's pretty accurate. What about the torque?
Maximum torque happens a little after 95.
How come it's all over the place?
Well, this is the torque delivery. And so this is increasing or decreasing torque delivery based on how the engine and the mapping and the exhaust work. You can see that the power curve is very smooth, which is why you have to look at a combination of power and torque to understand how the motorcycle is really going to respond driving it around on the street. The best aftermarket tunes or exhausts and modifications will eliminate the dips in the torque delivery, which is where these areas here, if we were able to fill that in and smooth this curve out, the bike would feel much more smooth to drive without a feel of decreasing and increasing acceleration forces, which some riders can pick up on, some riders can't.
Yeah.
What we want to try to stay away from is very steep accelerations of torque because that's what initiates spin. Now also keep in mind that what we're measuring here is not inclusive of the traction control electronics because they have to be turned off to operate the dyno. So we can mechanically bring this as close to optimum as we can. However, we can't really measure what's happening on the street because we're not overlaying the electronics. The electronics may patch up and fix a lot of this. Impossible for us to see here.
All right, so there we go. There's a dyno run for the stock exhaust. According to Triumph's website, the stock Street Triple RS produces 121 horsepower at the crank and 58 foot-pounds of torque. But on the dyno run, it produces 112.9 horsepower and 53.5 foot-pounds of torque. So obviously, crank versus wheel horsepower is going to be different. All right, so now we're going to do the SE Project exhaust.
Yeah, so the stock exhaust has a beauty cover on the left-hand side. It needs to be removed. There's a locating tab on the front. You need to slide the beauty cover forward to release it. Now it'll give you access to the clamp, which is going to be the forward part of the rear part of the exhaust we want to remove. That is, in fact, a 10 millimeter. So the exhaust is hung on a pin that is in a rubber dampener on this side. So the only way the exhaust is going to come off is going to be to move it rearward. Our 12 millimeter.
All right, SC project time. Let's see what this baby's like. The other one clocked at 101 decibel.
And 112 again.
What? Get out.
Actually, you know what? Just a tick more. 6 was our base file. So the red curve is the SC Projects exhaust. The blue curve is the stock one. You can see in certain areas the SC Projects is better on torque. Overall, it looks like the bikes are, it's almost worse with just the slip-on being on it. Now, of course, a lot of that could have come down to corrections of air fuel, etc., things that you can't legally adjust with a road-going bike, and that may be where the difference is, because right now fuel is a constant. But it appears that their peak numbers are extremely similar. It's just the method and the at any point in time where you pick, one is a little bit better than the other, but they'd end up at the same places for peak.
I don't know what to say. I actually expected the SC Project exhaust to be the winner in this, but it produced the same amount of horsepower and it was actually inferior compared to the stock exhaust. So very surprising, but now it's time to move on to the Spark exhaust and see what that does.
The new winner on power, 112.8. So it's almost 0.8 of a horsepower better than the other two. So that's our new high power number. You can see that the red line is the top, and that's the current run on the Spark exhaust. And it also wins in the torque shootout. And it seems to do a fairly good job filling this big hole in, up near 10,000 RPM. So if I was going to the racetrack, so far this would be the one I would pick. Maximum horsepower is up to 112.87 with the Spark. Torque remains the same at 53.7. That's within the margin of error. It's always been 53 and change for torque. So the torque isn't changing much. The power is changing a very little, but so far the Spark exhaust with its curly Q connector pipe seems to offer the best match to the stock electronics.
Oh, look at that. It turned blue. That is beautiful, man. Pretty.
Whoever does their welding knows what they're doing.
I kind of suspected that the Spark exhaust would be the winner in this challenge. Although it's not a huge game, there are certain areas of the RPM band, as you saw in the video, that it does better than the other two exhausts, the stock one and the SC Project. So this one is going to be the last one, and we're going to figure out how this exhaust does. So let's move on to the LeoVince.
Last but, well, yeah, it is last. I was about to say last but not least. But this is the last one. And this is the one that's going to stay on the bike.
Guys, I'm really sorry. I completely screwed up the last part of this video, and I thought I was taping, but unfortunately nothing came out on the video. So I'm going to be talking to you about the LeoVince exhaust, and the LeoVince exhaust was the winner of the shootout. All right, so now I've loaded up the LeoVince, the Spark, as well as the SC Project. Let's take a look at the torque and horsepower figures for each one of these. Spark is going to be green. SC Project is going to be red. And LeoVince is going to be the blue one. Alright guys, now that we've seen the dyno figures, let's continue where we last left off.
I've been waiting so long for this day to finally ride with an exhaust on the Spike. And so now is going to be the first real world test of an aftermarket exhaust on the Spike. Let's fire this baby up. Oh man, very deep bassy sound. That deep bassy sound is very, very reminiscent of my R6. Must be a LeoVince thing. Oh man, that is so deep. Whew. Oh man, this sounds fantastic. It's not obnoxious either. Well, let's rev it up first. Oh, this is pretty tolerable. It's not super loud. Pops. Man, it's so deep and bassy. Oh, those pops. They're wonderful. As far as power is concerned, I can't really tell the difference at the moment. I really have to give it the full beans to find out. But first impressions, where it's really counting at the current moment, is how much better it sounds in stock. It is so deep and bassy. It's not obnoxious. It's not obnoxiously loud, as it sounds a lot more loud on the dyno because obviously you're pushing it to the limit. But in real life, it's not as bad as the dyno, because on the dyno after the SC Project I put my earplugs on. That's why I didn't stand in front of it, because it was just way too loud. All right, let's see. We're gonna give it the full beans on the highway. Oh wow. Sounds so good. Woo! All right, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed this episode. So I really had a lot of fun making it. Give this video a like and subscribe to the channel to see more content coming up. This week-long review that I'm going to be doing is going to be a lot of fun. So the first episode that I'm going to make is going to be with the LeoVince exhaust, and that should be a good time. Until next time, see you later. Ciao for now.